what happens when you invest in all these infrastructures and they're not good people.
I didn't think I would ever do a fucking podcast. I didn't ever imagine doing that. It made me realize that my purpose is to help others reach the goals and reach their full capacity. And if I can impact somebody's life, that is bigger than money. That is bigger than anything else.
Welcome to Livestream. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Plains, where we teach you how to stream your life with my man, Jeremy Applegate. How you doing?
How you doing?
I don't know. How you doing?
Not bad. Hey, what's going on with the Heat? The Miami Heat. I mean, come
Well,
on.
you know, Tyler Hero broke his hand.
Yeah.
Pretty bad injury. Same game that Giannis got injured, but Giannis is back. And
Yeah,
the series is now tied 1-1.
Yeah, it was a 3-point class
Yeah,
by
no.
the Bucks. That was insane.
Well, the Bucks are amazing, man.
Yeah, they're a good team.
I predict the Bucks or Celtics versus the Suns in the final.
Suns, really? That's interesting. It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be the Bucks. To be honest with you, I mean, I think the Celtics they'll probably go 7 games, but I think the Bucks will be in the NBA Finals.
Yeah. What about in the West?
Yeah, I don't know about the West. I think the West is like
It can be anybody, huh?
anybody. I mean, I like the Kings, even though they got beat
I
last night.
know. It's been a while since the Kings have been good.
Yeah, so we'll see.
So what's going on? What's going on in the company? What do you like to talk about today?
Well, I think that we need to help our entrepreneurs understand the challenges of scaling and how to maneuver through that successfully
Yeah.
based upon our failures.
Yeah, so the last 2 or 3 years have been major. They've been major for me in overcoming all these challenges. Like, I can go back to our relationship. When I brought you in, you were the first director of operations that I ever had. Now you're in business development. But beforehand, when I hired you, I was afraid. Do I bring in this wage and accrue more costs and not understand what's going to happen, with the company? Because I always believed in running thin, thin overhead, thin expenses, put your money on the marketing side, grow your business that way and with the patient experience. But I didn't really believe so much in having upper management and a high, support system of infrastructure in the executive level.
You just didn't realize one man could make such a difference.
I didn't. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made, because look how many different things were working out together.
Yeah.
I wish you would have come into my life back in, I started my first office in 2014, November of 2014. I wish you would have come into my life like in 2016, 2017, because I think I wouldn't have had to overcome so many challenges that I did when 2018 hit and then moving forward.
Well, that's kind of you to say that, but I agree because we're a dynamic duo. But I think that entrepreneurs and dentists and specifically fall victim to what you kind of fell victim to. Like, they're fired up to go to office number 2 or 3, and they're like, well, I can handle everything.
Yeah, it's easy.
I can handle
but
it.
They fail to realize that they're the main providers. They're the ones bringing in the money.
Yep.
And they're the ones paying for everybody. So you're giving other people jobs, which is great, but you're not building a solid business full of the core fundamentals that you need to run a successful organization.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
It isn't sustainable whatsoever.
You cannot take care of patients, handle HR,
Marketing,
check the bank, do the marketing,
accounting,
fill in the
exactly.
blanks, all those buckets that come with being an entrepreneur. There's no way.
No, there's no way you can do it. So one of my biggest challenges was when to hire people. But then I was a big believer of promoting from the bottom up, and everybody within the organization that's been with me a long time, and some are still there and they've all been promoted, but building them up and creating. But I didn't know exactly how to do it. I just learned as we go. But when you learn as you go, then you make a lot of mistakes that are going to cost you a lot of money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs and dentists struggle with the idea of what's a long-term solution. You always want to have an end game on this. Focus on the short-term stuff, focus on the present, but also understand that you got to look at this thing big picture too. If you bring in a director of operations after having 2 or 3 offices, you know what? Yes, it is an expense and it is significant, But bringing that person in at that level,
It's going to help you set up for the
Exactly
future
correct.
growth, and then it's going to help you grow a lot quicker and with less headaches.
dynamic duo. You know?
So, when I did it, I did a lot of good moves. Like I believe I did some great moves, some bad moves. But when I built that office in Orlando, which was 2 hours away from my main office, without having the infrastructure and relying on the team that I had from the very beginning, it had the best. I thought it was the best option. But now that I think back, that was the perfect time. I should have put it in my profit and losses and budgeted in my CapEx to giving me the opportunity to bring in all these payrolls, even if I have to take a pay cut for a year or two while I grow and I scale. But another big thing that I want to talk to you about is like what happens when you invest in all these infrastructures and they're not good people.
I mean, that's a chance that you take, right? You hope that you find the right people. You hope that they're aligned with your vision. You hope that you've had enough conversations with them where, you feel good about it. But some people just don't work out. And, I mean, it might take 2 or 3 people to figure out that. And yes, it is difficult to swallow those expenses. But you got to go back to big picture. You have to make sure that, everybody understands. It's all about big picture, and entrepreneurs don't really have that big picture vision.
Yeah. I once had an attorney that he told me when, me and Chup were going to partner up in Orlando, and he's like, you think you got to figure it out because you went from 1 to 2 and you're doing very well with 2. Now you want to do an office with a partner doc, Dr. Chup, which is now, he's become a dear friend of mine. So I consider him part of my family, and now he's doing his own thing, which is amazing for him. But when we did it, he laughed at us. I remember we were at Hurricane Wings. We were having Hurricane Wings, and he's like, you think you guys got to figure it out? You can do 1 to 3 offices and do it very, very well. But once you go to 5 to 8, it's a huge challenge. I mean, the amount of challenges you're going to get are insane. But once you're past 8 and you have the infrastructure, then you can go from 8 to 15 to 20 so much more so fast, and you won't have all the hiccups that you did going from 3 to 5 to 8 like we've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, I love how you said that, because you get to this point and then you're pretty much going from 8 to 16 or 8 to 20. I mean, you already have the infrastructure in place. You shouldn't really need to add too much more infrastructure. It's just leading them and managing them and making sure that everybody's checking the boxes.
Yeah, and then one thing that I've realized is that I try to determine what I've learned in combination with my experience. There's no recipe for this. So what revenue, because we got to think about revenue as well, and profit and loss and budgeting. What revenue do you recommend that you bring in a C-suite? How much money should you be collecting as an organization before you make the decision of bringing in a C-suite team or even an executive team?
Well, I mean, C-suite that's a big investment, just because, when you start talking about C-suite, you start talking about
CFOs,
significant salaries and CFOs and COOs and so on and so forth. I mean, you got to be doing $20 million minimally, and you got to be, you have to be EBITDA 25% or higher on that, just to make sure that the organization is not going to take a step backwards financially by bringing those individuals in.
Yeah, I met a group up in Central Florida, and he was collecting roughly around $9 million, $8 to $9 million, and he brought in a C-suite. See, I think that is very premature to bring in a C-suite, because the wages are the payroll's just gonna crush you, and then the EBITDA is gonna be very low. And how much are you really worth? I know what his intentions were to have that team in place to then continue to grow. But at the end of the day, I thought it was a little premature. Like, for example, I can admit myself that I invested in a major IT infrastructure upgrade, probably $5 to $7 million short of where I needed to be before making that investment.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think that, entrepreneurs, you should use your data of your organization to understand how to build that infrastructure, whether it be IT or human capital spend or whatever the circumstance is. Use the data, because the data doesn't lie. If you can bring on a director of operations for whatever it was, 90,000, 100,000, 120, whatever that number is, you need to build that in there, and you need to make sure that that makes sense based upon the data provided.
Yeah, but you also got to understand that that's going to impact your organization a lot. I mean, at that point, you don't have to be overseeing every little part of your accounting side, of your marketing side, of your operational side. So you're going to have time, and time has a price to it. And if you're going to have a little bit more opportunity to be able to continue to grow your doctors or grow your business in other ways. Remember, you got into this idea of being an entrepreneur because you're a visionary and you want to be able to grow your business. You don't want to be tied down doing little things that you can have somebody else do it. And that's one of the mistakes I made. Like, I wanted to control every single piece of my business. And at the end of the day, I think that capped out my growth. It gave me limiters or barriers very early in the game that I could have broken if I would have invested in them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, it's a risk, and that's why entrepreneurs love playing the game, right? You guys are risk takers.
Yeah, but if you go back and you start becoming, go back into the clinical chair and being an entrepreneur, it's almost impossible to do it. And once you're in that role, to get out of the chair, it's going to be a huge challenge. How many years did it take me to start stepping down from one role to another? I mean, we've been working at it for 3 years already.
Yeah, I mean, you were working 5 days a week chairside, and I came on board, and then we were like, we got you down to 2 Fridays a month, and now you're no Fridays a month. You know what I mean? So it's it's important. You have to have that time to take a step back and reflect on the business, but also, let's get some me time.
Exactly. So you know what, you need to make those type of decisions, and you got to be very calculated in it. And sometimes it might be looking at your P&Ls and figuring out what expense you can cut down a bit in order to bring in those elements of human capital in order to continue to grow your business. Maybe you don't need to have 10 different magazines out there marketing you. Maybe you can get rid of 2 of them and still have the same impact. So then you got to start tracking the data and figuring out what is your best ROI, your return on investment on what you're doing.
Yeah, and I love how you said that, because entrepreneurs have this knack for forgetting what they've done. I'm paraphrasing this, but it's a situation where you're like, you spend all this money on this process, and then you forget that you spent that money on that process.
Yeah.
Like, who can get into their bank statement, or who can look at their P&Ls and say, oh my gosh, we still have that vendor?
And you don't even know. And a lot of times they're getting automatically debited, and you don't even know that you're spending that money. That's why it's so important to have operational support and accounting support and marketing support in order to oversee all these different buckets, so you don't get taken advantage of, like I personally have been done by labs and different vendors.
Yeah, and I think that's important that you said that, because, that infrastructure, you need to make sure that you see value in that, and there's lots of different ways for those individuals to provide value to your organization.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, at the end of the day, one of the biggest things is, when you realize that the people that you have brought on are not ideal in your vision, at what point do you remove them, or do you add different people, or you make changes, or you go back to the basics again?
Well, I mean, I think it depends on how long it takes for you to figure out that they're not the right fit. If it's within 90 days, I think you just cut them loose and find somebody else. I mean, that bucket might suffer a little bit, but it's a temporary suffer. If they've been there for a while and they've really established, some kind of process or protocol, and you feel like that's going to limit the success of your business, then, you need to look at maybe hiring before letting go, something like that. So, I mean, I don't think there's a cookie cutter situation with respect to that. I think it really is adaptation to that specific situation.
Yeah, entrepreneurs that get into the dental realm and want to grow their business, they want to look for an exit. And let's be real, everyone's looking for that big exit. Before 10, 15 years ago, you can throw crap at a wall and a private equity group was looking to buy you. It doesn't matter if you had infrastructure, if you didn't have infrastructure. They were giving you really high multiples without having any systems, protocols, or procedures in place. Nowadays, DCDSOs come in, and the multiples are also based on not only your revenue and your EBITDA, but on the infrastructure you have in the back end. So you want to have a solid business with core principles before you even think of selling, because they're going to take advantage of you.
Yeah, I mean, that'll impact. I mean, 2x, 3x is a significant impact. You know, going from 6 to 9 or 4 to 7. I mean, those are huge dollars. Those are huge multiples.
And then in the next 2 or 3 years, private equity is still investing in the dental and medical realm, but they're being a little bit more calculated in the groups that they get involved, because some of these groups that grew way too fast have actually gone bankrupt now, and they're actually merging with, they're having to sell to the big ones that actually had the infrastructure to support them. We've had these calls before, and what do they tell you? They're looking for groups that have solid foundations.
Yep.
That are in one state, that are close by, that they don't have to have 4 or 5 different individuals to run that group. Where before, you'll be bought out. You can have an office with 4 operatories doing $5 million, and they will still buy you. Now they want to see how many operatories you have, how many hygienists do you have. Let me see how many active patients. I mean, they're doing major analysis. So if you guys think that you're just going to get an office, build it up, and just flip it, with a private equity, it's not the way it used to be before.
Yeah, I mean, in a past life, we just were like, we'd buy anything, and it came back and bit us in the rear end. I'll never forget this. We bought a dental practice in the state of Tennessee, and it was actually built inside an oil change, a lube place, and you could literally still feel the lube, the lube and the oil change. And it was like, nope, just buy it. Nope, just buy it. We're like, well, it's a Medicare facility. Nope, just buy it, just buy it, just buy it. So you're right. Today is different.
It's very different.
They want to know square footage.
They want to know how many operatories, when the equipment was bought,
Yep.
How old is the compressor, because...
Well, they got smarter, right?
Yeah.
They're like, well, hell, we lose our ass on these deals, like a Tennessee deal where, we're like, why do we pay? We overpaid for that. I mean, I think we paid that guy like $900,000 for that practice or something crazy.
Exactly. A lot of these big groups are they're not really, they're in dentistry, right? They're in the dental realm or in the medical or into the orthopedic or chiropractor world, but they're really not in it because of that reason. They're in it because of the real estate. When they get the real estate, then they're able to depreciate these assets. And then the medical or the dental office is paying the holding company, which is the real estate holding company. And so it's a circle that just continues to grow. So private equity is not only looking at the dental, they're also looking at real estate as well.
Yep, 100% right. 100% right. And they're not going away.
No, they're not.
So figure out what your infrastructure looks like. Figure out how you want to explain. And you know what? Build a 3-year plan. You know what I mean? Like, this is where we're estimated to be this year, next year, the year after, the year after. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add an operational person. I'm going to add marketing. I'm going to add, whatever, fill in the blanks. But, you need to have a plan for this. A lot of entrepreneurs are emotional decision makers. You just can't on a Tuesday wake up and say, oh, I'm hiring an operational guy today.
No, you got to do your analysis. Something very interesting that I found out the other day is that, we all know McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
And McDonald's is not in the burger business. Do you know what business they're in?
Real estate.
Well, real estate and in the Happy business. That's why they came up with the Happy Meal.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, so, it's very interesting that McDonald's is focusing on, that's their business, is making people happy. So not only do they do real estate, but they're all about, the customer experience and making sure that people leave happy and content.
Wow. I mean, I could say some other stuff, but we'll just. I think there's some opportunity.
Well,
there.
they hold the largest amount of real estate than any other corporation in the world does. So,
Correct.
I mean, McDonald's was formed when 1965, 1969, I believe, something around that realm.
Yep.
And I mean, in 60 years, they're the largest holders of real estate. And the same thing is going to happen with different aspects. I mean, I feel that in dentistry, for example, and mark my words, I'll put money on this. We'll look at this podcast 2 or 3 years from now. You're going to start seeing the business within a business model start taking more and more effect, because land is getting very expensive. People don't want to invest so much in building these huge facilities anymore. So they're going to be building these, a big medical center, for example. And within the medical center, you're going to have all these different, you're going to have a chiropractor, you're going to have an optometrist, you're going to have a gastroenterologist, and they're all going to rent spaces and of course a dentist, and they're all going to rent spaces to limit the cost of the area. Plus, it's like a one-stop shop. Why do you think CVS and Walgreens are getting involved with dentistry now? I mean, is it Walgreens or CVS that partnered with Aspen Dental? So you're going to have an Aspen Dental within a Walgreens. And now you have Walmart that's also getting in the same thing, which I think in the state of Florida, there's already 15 Walmarts that have dental. They have vision, obviously, and they got medical services within.
It's all because of real estate. Like what you just said, it's just getting so expensive that they have to get creative on that. And, these one-stop shop places, it's going to be the next phase on healthcare. And it's probably going to be a stable phase, to be honest with you. We're probably going to see that for quite a while. We probably won't go back to
the conventional ways.
Conventional.
Yeah, I believe, I predict that, and this has been said in big meetings that I've gone to that are, collectively mix of DSOs, emerging DSOs, and private equities. And they say that 25 to 30% of dental practices will be in some way, shape, or form affiliated or bought out or merged with a dental DSO. So, we gotta adapt to the changes in time, and we gotta be active in what we read and what we know. And pretty much that's how I'll conclude it for today. Thank you, Jeremy.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoy the show.